Focus with news that's breaking this minute. We're being told Prime Minister Modi has in fact broken his silence, described some anti-minority remarks that have been made by the Sangh Parivar leaders is actually uncalled for. Well, this is the news that's breaking this minute for the first time here. Prime Minister Modi breaking his silence. Paulami Saha with further details. Paulami, help us understand where he made this statement and what were his exact words there.
Well, this was made in an interview to All India Radio. As you know, the Prime Minister has been, on this public relations overdrive where he is giving individual interviews to certain national dailies, television channels, and of course, certain agencies. So this is part of that process that he has been undertaking since his completion of 1 year in governance. And this is in an interview to All India Radio. The excerpts of that interview are only being sent out by AIR for the moment. And one of the things that, one of the highlights of that interview, we believe, is that Prime Minister Modi has stated that anti-minority statements made by certain Sangh leaders definitely are something which will not be acceptable.
Right. Has he stated that these are not going to be acceptable, or has he just hinted at these being unfortunate remarks at the end of the day?
Well, at the moment, what we hear is, yes, they are unfortunate is what he stated, but we're waiting for the full interview to be out to know the exact context he said it in, what was the question exactly, and what was his full response to it. But we know that Prime Minister Modi, on various occasions, has hinted at the fact that the government is an inclusive government, that this is a government of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and this is government which will not tolerate these sort of statements. Of course, it is not just the wider Sangh, leaders coming under the wider umbrella of the Sangh. It's not just a Sadhvi Pragya or a Praveen Togadia. These are also statements made by members of parliament like Sakshi Maharaj, like Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, as well as the minister in the Union Council. So that's clearly, right. We need to know the full gamut of the Prime Minister's statement.
And more recently, in fact, as you stated, when you have ministers making statements, this of course would essentially mean referring to the beef ban and multiple statements by each of the ministers in the centre for or against the beef ban that have been made.
Absolutely, because it almost seems like there is some sort of confusion within the union government as to what exactly is the intent behind this beef ban which has been imposed in the state of Maharashtra. What exactly was the ideology, the thinking behind it, while some, like Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, would rather relate it with religion, or Shahnawaz Hussain for that matter, relating it with religion. There are others like Ram Madhav who told us in an exclusive interview that it has got to do nothing with religion but with lifestyle choices. So what exactly is the intent of the government behind this beef ban? There seems to be no clarity in the thinking, and it's almost the message that definitely seems to be going down to the masses is that it has got everything to do with religion.
Well, stay with us, Paulami. Let's also get a view here from our senior colleague at the Sunday Guardian. We have Professor Madhav Nalapat with us. Thanks for being with us, Professor. Would you call this a mild reaction that's coming from the Prime Minister breaking his silence on this, or is it a very definite stand here that he's taken, that he's not going to be tolerating this now and henceforth?
Well, I'd just like to say that any reaction coming from the Prime Minister is a very important reaction. It's a very serious reaction. And I think it clearly indicates the Prime Minister's mind on this matter, which is basically he'd like to take the entire country with him. I mean, he has said he's the Prime Minister of the entire country, and there is no question of being Prime Minister only of one section of the people of this country. So I do believe that's a very serious comment, and it's indicative of his desire to take the entire country with him as in his governance of the country.
That's right, Professor, but we've seen a similar such situation that has taken place in the past as well. There were reports that Prime Minister Modi, in fact, took a stand saying that he'd be quitting if the Sangh fronts really don't behave. So would you say this is a similar such stand here that's been taken by him, or was it just a question of responding to a question in an interview?
Well, I think that, overall the situation in India has been quite calm. There has really not been a very much increase in communal tension. And I do believe that the individuals have been acting responsibly, barring a few. So I'm quite certain that that situation will continue.
Right. Paulami, what are the other details here that you have? Is there going to be a meeting here that Prime Minister Modi would be having with his ministers, really, essentially to give out one single message from each of his ministers as far as the controversial issue of the beef ban or other controversial subjects really termed under anti-minority here, because you have ministers within the cabinet also speaking in different tones?
Well, the Prime Minister has stated his position vis-a-vis this issue very clearly and very amply on various occasions. One of the first meetings that he had with his cabinet ministers after assuming office, where he stated that he wanted the focus to be on development and governance, and everything the ministers should do should focus on that, and they should not divert from this, and they should not get drawn into unnecessary controversy. Even when Sakshi Maharaj made repeated statements that completely went against the inclusive agenda of the government, the message went down from the BJP National Party office. He was served a show cause notice. He was told categorically that he cannot be making such statements, but which definitely hurt the image of the government as a whole as well. Clearly, the Prime Minister has been extremely serious because, the messengers can be different. They can be an Amit Shah, or they can be Arun Jaitley, or other leaders, senior tall leaders within the party. But the message actually is coming from the Prime Minister himself.
That's right. Professor, in your view, what could be the repercussions of this statement, which essentially is just an answer to a question in an interview? Oh, we seem to have lost that connect there with Professor Madhav Nalapad. But Paulomi, this of course would in fact mean that the Prime Minister putting his foot down, making it clear to all his colleagues, all his MPs, all his ministers here, this is something that he's been extremely unhappy about.
Definitely unhappy about, but we need to, like I was saying, we need to know the exact full statement to know how strong is this reaction. Because from what AIR has tweeted in terms of an excerpt from that interview, says that the Prime Minister said that these comments are uncalled for. So is it just stopping at uncalled for, or does it go on to say something that I will not accept these comments, I will not allow for these comments to be made, these remarks to be made, and for leaders to get away with it? Because the criticism against the BJP has been that they've not been taking any sort of action against these repeat offenders like Sakshi Maharaj or like Giraj Singh, for instance.
That's right. Paulmi, so is the question in this interview known, which would also help us understand the larger context to which Prime Minister responded?
We don't know the question as of yet. We're waiting for AIR to put out the whole interview before we know exactly what was the question, in what context did the Prime Minister say this.
That's right. Also, given the fact, putting this in larger perspective and what the government has essentially been marking the success of governance there and being in power in 365 days, which the Prime Minister's office would largely feel has been marred by an ugly controversy as well.
No, I'm sorry, Sahar, could you please repeat the question?
Paulomi, essentially trying to put this in larger perspective and what the BJP has been trying to do in the past week, in the past few weeks, in fact, in really marking the success of being in government in 1 year, 365 days of all the achievements in each of the respective ministries here that have been made. But what has really shot to the headlines is an ugly controversy of comments on the beef ban.
That's right. The Prime Minister is perturbed about these issues, somehow taking away from the fact that, this is the government which has had a fairly little controversy in terms.
Let's go across to political analyst Ms. Neerja Chaudhary with us over the phone line. Thanks for being with us, ma'am. In your view, was this a statement that was to be made by the Prime Minister much earlier in the day, or nevertheless, it comes in on a right note? Ms. Chaudhary, is my voice going through?
Yeah, no, I can't hear. I didn't hear your question.
Ms. Chaudhary, in your view, this, of course, Prime Minister Modi speaking in an interview in response to a question there, saying that some anti-minority comments that have been made by the Sangh Parivar leaders are actually uncalled for.
No, those are very welcome remarks by the Prime Minister as the head of the country, assuring to that should be assuring to the minorities. And people had hoped, that soon after he took over, he would come out very forthrightly. He's spoken from time to time, and sabka saath, sabka vikas, and even giving signals to the world that to come and invest in India, which is not possible if you don't have the politically harmonious climate. So very welcome coming from the Prime Minister.
All right, please stay with us. Please stay with us, ma'am. We also have Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress with us on the phone line. Thanks for being with us, Priyanka. Would you say this is on a welcome note, or would you say this has come in much late in the day?
Not just late in the day, it is also very hypocritical simply because he puts the blame on the Sangh and totally discounting the factor that even MPs from his own party have made some comments which hurt religious minorities. It's extremely ridiculous to pin the blame on one person while you totally ignore what is happening from your own senior cabinet ministers. And this is something we've heard the Prime Minister say earlier too about constitution being our religion and he ensuring that religious minorities will feel safe in the country. What happens to those people like a Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, like you had the UP MP, you've had Giriraj Singh. What about those? Why are they going away scot-free? These are elected representatives and they are accountable to the country, they are accountable to the Prime Minister. He should also have spoken for them. And probably followed it up with some action against these people.
Ms. Chaudhary, in your view, has this been really a question of labeling the Sangh to be responsible for all the ugliness, or should he also in fact be mentioning his own ministers, mainstream political leaders in the BJP making similar such remarks? You seem to have lost that line with Ms. Neerja Chaudhary. But Priyanka, that of course, you're making a distinction there when Prime Minister Modi says that these comments, of course, essentially being made by the Sangh Parivar. What in your view should be the message that should come out by Prime Minister Modi as far as his own cabinet ministers are concerned as well?
Messages sound great. They sound whatever that he's trying to, he admits that there is an issue. But it will be extremely sincere only when it's followed by some action against such people and cracking down on such people, such elements, so that they do not come up with statements like these or do not create an environment of disharmony in the nation. You can keep speaking about this every 1 month and make a statement saying that he condemns such statements or he doesn't associate himself or these are unfortunate statements. But what about action? Why don't you take action? Actions always speak louder than his words or anyone's words.
Paulmi Saha, who in fact brought us this report, this of course on a tweet that had come in on the AIR's website in an interview that Prime Minister Modi had given to the station there on an issue that he was asked about. The question in that interview is still not known. Of course, we'd be further listening into that question once the station releases this. But he clearly stated in his response that the anti-minority comments here being made by the Sangh Parivar are uncalled for. Of course, the Congress here saying that it's unfair to just, in fact, blame the Sangh Parivar. You have his own cabinet ministers having made remarks which were largely seen as anti-minority. This, of course, with respect to the ugly controversy on the beef ban. Prime Minister there stating discrimination against any community will not be tolerated. The Sangh's anti-minority remarks are uncalled for. So should he just be blaming the Sangh here for this? After having broken his silence on this matter, should he just be blaming the Sangh here, or should he also be putting in a word to his own ministers in his cabinet for having made similar such hurtful statements? This isn't the first time that Prime Minister Modi has expressed anguish on similar such statements here being made much earlier in the day when he came to power in December last year. In fact, there were reports that stated Prime Minister Modi already having threatened to quit if Sangh fronts do not behave. Our news editor Rishabh Gulati with further details on this. Rishabh, the Congress, of course, taking another view on this, irrespective of the fact that the Prime Minister has broken his silence, saying that these are uncalled for. It's just the Sangh that he's blaming. He's not making a mention of any of his ministers.
Yes, absolutely right. He was asked the question in this All India Radio interview, and he's made it very clear. He said that all extremist comments, so whether they come from the RSS or the BJP, and I'm paraphrasing here, all extremist comments are unwelcome. He's also taken the attack onto the Congress, where he said that Acche Din are very much here. The road, the path to Acche Din has become. So this is not only a message that is being sent out. Analysts would view this as the message that the Prime Minister is sending out to open his second year in government. If the message we saw in Mathura last week was the closing of the first year, here's the opening of the second year. He's drawn a few lines. Now it remains to be seen if at least the parties in this case who should be paying heed to the Prime Minister's advice actually do.
Let's in fact get a view here from Mr. Shahid Siddiqui with us with the phone line as well. Sir, in your view, would you say this is a remark that is coming too late on the day, or this being the need of the hour in marking the opening of his second year?
It's never too late, and it's an extremely welcome remark. Although it should have come earlier, but it doesn't matter whenever he has made it. But the point is that there should not only be this kind of very clear, line and policy from the Prime Minister, but those who make this kind of speeches, hate speeches, those who want to, sideline the minorities, marginalize the minorities, they should themselves be marginalized in BJP. Unless they are marginalized, the message will not go home. So they should get a message that if you speak this way, you have no place in BJP, you will not be able to go far. So that message should also go. They should not be given much importance in the party.
Let's in fact get a view from Ajay Alok of the JDU. We also have Ms. Shaina NC of the BJP. Please stay with us, Shaina. Coming to you in just about a few seconds. First to you, Mr. Ajay Alok. Would you think there would have been a far tougher stand that Prime Minister should have taken, not just blaming the Sangh here for these anti-minority remarks, but also taking into consideration what his own ministers have stated?
See, it's not that Mr. Narendra Modi was not knowing for the last 1 year that what kind of anti-minority remarks are being made by his ministers and from the RSS. It's just that he has spoken for the first time. But merely speaking won't do. What action are you going to take against? On the one hand, you talk about communal harmony. One hand, you talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Now you have to show some actions because he's only famous for only speaking. And he has been speaking and speaking only for the last 1 year. That's all the country is listening to.
All right, action that needs to be seen on ground. Let's ask that to the BJP. Ms. Shaina NC with us. Shaina, this of course is largely being seen as a statement that has been made at the end of the day. He's finally broken his silence, but one needs to be seeing action on ground. He needs to act not just against his MPs, not just against the fringe elements under the Sangh as how he stated, but also against his own ministers.
I think you need to give it to our Prime Minister that he has had the courage of conviction to actually speak about people who have been echoing their own thoughts and pitching it almost to suggest that the government has echoed them, which is factually untrue. His statement which says that anti-minority comments need to be condemned is for one and all. It is not specific to a particular organization, and please don't pitch this as if Prime Minister Modi is criticizing the Sangh. There are random elements in large organizations such as the BJP and other parties as well.
But Ms. Shaina, you have your own ministers, your own cabinet ministers have made embarrassing statements with respect to the beef ban concern. So these are not really extreme fringe elements that we're looking at.
I think the fact that our Prime Minister has gone on record and given an indication that in a democracy you are entitled to an opinion, but do not get into any kind of unwarranted commentary vis-a-vis minorities or sections of India which are part of being Indian, I think is a strong enough message, and there is nothing that needs to be read into or to suggest that, one stray comment here or there. Okay. In a country as large and diverse as India, you're obviously going to have multiple opinions.
Okay, Mr. Siddiqui, would you call this as what Shaina has been terming? Would you call this a brave stand for the Prime Minister to have taken, or this is really the stand expected to be taken by the leader of the country?
There's nothing brave about it. It was expected long time back. He's spoken as a member of the minority community. I welcome it, but I will not say that in a democracy this kind of statements are made. These are hate speeches which have no place in any democracy, especially in a secular democratic country like India. We are multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, and in this kind of multicultural society, everybody has a place, and nobody should be forced into a corner. And the speeches which have been made I will put them into a category of hate speeches.
Okay.
And the message should go very clearly. And as I said,
Shaina, the timing of this statement also being questioned because this.
Some of them have been given, plump posts after they have made these speeches. That is what has made us very, very, perturbed.
Well, Shaina, that being the argument here, that last point that Mr. Siddiqui raised here, saying that despite certain MPs having made such ugly remarks, largely seen as anti-minority, they were given ministerial positions despite those remarks. So you're not really seeing action on ground.
First and foremost, our Prime Minister is here to deliver on the plank of development and progress, and that is what we will continue to do. A strong comment such as this coming from the Prime Minister, where he says any anti-minority comment is uncalled for and will not be subscribed to, is substantial to merit the viewpoint of the government, and in the days to come, the action of the government that you keep talking about can only be reached out to all by inclusive politics, which is what we're here to do. And when we talk about development, it is for one and all.
But how about asking your ministers to step down there? That would mean real action.
But who do you want? Who do you think on every comment that everyone makes, the Prime Minister should be only being bothered about that, or should he continue to do what he's been elected for, which is good governance, a stable government and strong leadership, which is what he's done? The fact that today India is a proud nation world over shows that these Indians, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, all alike, are part of this great vision plan of one man called Mr. Narendra Modi. I think we need to applaud the courage of conviction that he has shown through this comment, which says that we are on the plank to deliver. We will continue to do our work. Acche Din have come, and the fact is that we will not subscribe to any kind of unwarranted commentary.
Is this enough? Is a statement enough?
No, as I have said, let's be positive, let's not be negative all the time. Let's be positive. It's a very welcome statement. But beyond this, he will have to show that those who make this kind of a statement are not welcome in the party, will not be encouraged in the party. For that, he has to take some action. I'm not saying remove the minister. I'm not saying the minister should resign. Nothing of the sort. We don't want confrontation. You see, confrontation is nobody's interest, not in the national interest. And confrontation between communities is not required. I know other parties would like to have a confrontation, polarize politics, have minorities into a corner and Hindus into another corner. That we are totally against. But at the same time, the mere making a statement will not help. You will have to show by some action that such statements are really uncalled for.
Well, China, that being the argument, because there's been no action. This was a similar situation that one saw in December last year as well, in which reports were saying that Prime Minister Modi had said that he'd step down if the Sangh fronts did not behave. But we're seeing a repeat of that happening about 5 months later. So nothing has changed. Prime Minister just making yet another statement not supporting these views.
Please do not repeatedly the Sangh a bad name. The Sangh is a nationalistic organization that is working on a vision plan to ensure that every Indian is taken care of. Now, you constantly try to suggest that, oh, there is some kind of, undoing or unbecoming between our Prime Minister and the RSS. Don't please spread false agendas.
But China, that's what the Prime Minister has been quoted in the interview, saying that anti-minority comments made by the Sangh Parivar leaders are uncalled for.
Anti-minority comments made by anyone are unwelcome. That is the fundamental point. You may belong to A organization or B, and if you have regressive comments, it needs to be condemned, and that's exactly what our Prime Minister
we have Mr. Ajay Alok of the JDU with us, who's of course been holding on and listening to this argument. Mr. Alok, why a statement, just a statement here, a definitive statement from the Prime Minister not being enough?
See, we have seen these statements earlier also. We have seen Sakshi Maharaj giving comments. We have seen Yogi Adityanath passing rude comments. We have seen Giriraj Singh doing innumerable number of times. But at the same time, it was this Prime Minister only who made Giriraj Singh the minister. Now, today, if you're passing a comment like this, that these all anti-minority comments are not warranted, then why did you make Giriraj Singh the minister? What prompted you to do so? I mean, your action has to justify your words, thereby saying that my anti-minority statement by RSS is uncalled for. That doesn't justify that you are really serious about it. If you are really serious, then please show something on the ground. Please take action against those who are into. Please get after those who are aiding and abetting this kind of communal hatred. But none of these actions have yet come far.
Right.
So
Mr. Siddique, in your view, the best possible action here to really send out the message the Prime Minister Modi is serious about what he's talking about is to have these ministers step down, or would that be an extreme action?
I think that may not be possible for him to do, but what I will prefer is that those who are not in the ministry, they are not given positions in the party. They are removed from there.
Okay.
And in future no such action takes place. But one more thing is very clear that it is the statements have been made. It is statement made by the Sangh Parivar itself, not by anyone else. As China was saying, that anybody who makes, yes, of course, anybody who makes a statement.
That's right. That's right. Let's see what the Samajwadi Party feels about this. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia of the SP with us over the phone line. Mr. Bhatia, in your view, is a statement just enough?
No, I would say that Mr. Modi's image over the last 1 year has become of a man of rhetoric. And he has to supplement this statement with action so that people can start believing in the constitution again, in the government again. We have seen how this government has been functioning. There is an extra constitutional authority by the name of RSS, which is running this government through a remote control. We have seen that MPs of BJP, who should be protecting the constitution, have been making communal and divisive statements, especially in UP. And this, I think, is a hidden agenda of the BJP, and they get their nod from the topmost leaders of the party. Unless those people are reined in and action is taken, these statements would all remain hollow promises and would not help the country and the people of this country.
Shaina, in your view, how would you react to this? Largely, a lot of political parties really not buying into that remark that's come in by Prime Minister.
Well, I don't want to retort to what the Samajwadi Party has said, which has only played appeasement politics. I think Prime Minister Modi is going to walk the talk only by leading by example. And what does that mean? That means that if you talk about an all-inclusive society, if you talk about job opportunities for all, if you talk about development for all, it includes every segment and section of society. That is what we have been voted for. Commentary will happen irrespective of who is in power and who is not. If we subscribe to that, we fall victim. If we rise above that, we show statesmanship. And I think Prime Minister Modi, with this comment, has shown utmost statesmanship in today's day and age.
Tom Varakan of the Congress with us on the phone line as well. Thanks for being with us, sir. In your view, would you call this statement, would you see this on a welcome note, or do you feel this would have come earlier, this should have come much earlier in the day, and it should not just remain a mere statement, but action to be seen on ground as well?
You have answered all my questions, but the fact remains, talking about it to the media is one thing, but calling up his compatriots from Nagpur and telling them to keep off the minority would be a better step. He should talk directly. His Man Ki Baat is addressed to the people of India, but he should listen to the Dil Ki Baat of this country. It is important that he addresses his people and not countrymen. It is important that the fringe elements understand his language. It is not enough that we are convinced. It is they who are the people who start this, and it is to them that he needs to address this issue. This is a very serious issue and not cosmetic as just addressing the you and I. The nation knows what secularism is about, but these fringe elements must be told and told their place as to what they should do in public domain.
Mr. Varakan, do you get the sense that Prime Minister Modi played this issue several times through the 1 year? He'd taken a such stand earlier as well, but instead gone ahead, made some of these leaders who'd made such ugly remarks, largely seen as anti-minority, appointed them as ministers, are not really shown that good in action.
He should show that he is the leader. It's not enough to speak just to the media. At the ground zero, action should be taken. Action should be taken immediately against these people who talk against the minority. It is very important that he acts now that time has been lost, but he can still catch up with time by showing action will be taken against such elements immediately.
Other political parties, of course, suggesting that he asked these ministers to step down, given a strong warning, a stern warning to his MPs as well. Would the Congress be of the similar view? Have these ministers stepped down?
It would be not important to request them to step down. He must sack them. And the word is sack, not suffer them.
That's right. Gaurav Bhatia of the Samajwadi Party, they're still with us. Mr. Bhatia, Mr. Bhatia, would you have a similar view of what the Congress here is stating?
I would definitely agree with the Congress on this, that it is time that the Prime Minister makes every Indian feel that he is the Prime Minister of the country and he is not affiliated to a political party like the BJP. And it also needs a complete change in your thought process and mentality, that even though you have not got minority support, but they have also elected the Prime Minister through elections. If Mr. Yogi Adityanath remains the epitome of secularism and he debates sensitive issues of communal politics in the parliament for BJP, I think it will never inspire confidence. So I think next time that Mohan Bhagwat says that this is a Hindu Rashtra only, I would wait to see whether the Prime Minister of the country will have the courage to rise to the occasion and then say that I condemn this statement of Mr. Mohan Bhagwat. And I was hearing Shaina NCG, I completely agree with her when she said that he will be taking action. Okay. Because in the past 1 year, he has not taken action which he was supposed to do. If he will be taking action, we will be the first party to appreciate that and compliment.
All right. Let's in fact get in a reaction from this from the left as well. We have Mr. Mohammad Salim with us, Mr. DP Tripathi of the NCP with us as well. First to you, Mr. Salim. Do you feel this should have been a sterner, bolder statement there by Prime Minister? Should he have been taking names? Should he in fact show some action on ground as well when he really means to slam these ministers, slam his own partymen for making anti-minority statements?
It was too little and too late. For last 1 year, people are waiting. Where the Prime Minister who boosted 6 inches of...
Mr. Salim, I'm afraid we'll have to reconnect with you on that in just a bit because of that bad audio line. Let's instead go across to Mr. DP Tripathi with us. Mr. Tripathi, will you also be of the view that this is too little too late?
No. At least, for a change, the Prime Minister has spoken against all these statements. And I wish he will take action.
Mr. Tripathi, when you say take action, what is it that you mean? What is it that you have in mind? What is it that you expect here?
Action is very simple. Under the laws of the land, you take action. Anyone who is instigating communal tension, action can be taken against him according to the laws of the land. So take action. There are laws there. That's it.
Mr. Varakkan, we have the NCP of the same view as well, taking action here that would really matter on ground. But do you feel he should also be putting in a word to each of his ministers, as you stated, not using the platform of an interview, not using the platform of Man Ki Baat in really describing what he feels on this, but having a meeting of all his ministers? Well, we seem to have lost that line with Mr. Varakkan, but for our viewers who've just joined in, this, of course, is the top focus this afternoon. In a statement here that is coming from the Prime Minister, essentially answering an interview at the AIR, stating that anti-minority comments there being made by the Sangh Parivar leaders are uncalled for. Mr. DP Tripathi, the other argument on this statement here being that it should just not narrow in on the Sangh Parivar, on the other fringe elements apart from the Sangh Parivar as well, but also address his own ministers, his own MPs who've been making similar such ugly statements.
No, the question is very simple. Mr. Narendra Modi is Prime Minister of India. Every citizen is represented under his leadership. Therefore, if there is any campaign, forget about riots, attacks, or any campaign against the minorities, it is very bad. and there the Prime Minister has taken note of it. I'm happy about it, that the Prime Minister has taken note of it.
All right, but Mr. Tripathi, there are many who feel that action needs to be taken on ground as well. There was an earlier time in December last year as well. Prime Minister Modi had taken note of this. It was believed that he threatened to quit if the Sangh fronts do not behave. He'd sent in an ultimatum. He made his mind clear on this matter, but nothing seems to have changed. What has followed is similar statements that have continued.
I disagree with the ideology of BJP, but I'll still say that I'm a bit optimistic about the Prime Minister's actions. I wish he would take action. Okay?
Party of the NCP, many thanks for speaking to us. In all the political reactions here that we've been getting in, largely the belief here being that Prime Minister Modi should be doing more, not just expressing regret on these statements, not just saying that these statements are uncalled for. There should have been a far sterner stand that should have been taken by Prime Minister Modi, a lot suggesting that he should be taking action, and he should be taking action against his MPs, against his ministers who've been caught in a similar such ugly controversy of making anti-minority remarks. Our correspondent Paulami Saha, who in fact broke this news based on an answer there that is believed to be given by Prime Minister Modi on a radio interview. Paulami, of course, we still don't know the details of the question, which would larger put it in better perspective on what is it that Prime Minister Modi was referring to on the nature of remarks there. But nevertheless, it is a comment that is, as the BJP would like to believe, sending out the right message.
That's right. That's probably one of the strongest and most firm statements that have been made by the Prime Minister vis-a-vis this whole issue which has been plaguing the government in terms of anti-minority statements that have been made by various leaders who are not just part of the government or not members of parliament itself, but the larger Sangh Parivar. This possibly is his most direct attack against the Sangh Parivar itself, because if we just read, we go with the statement put out by AIR and we just go with it verbatim. It basically says that the Prime Minister says that anti-minority statements made by Sangh leaders are uncalled for. So possibly, hitting out directly at the RSS and those who come under the wider network of the Sangh Parivar, those like Sadhvi Pragya, those like Praveen Tagodia, who've time and again made several statements that have embarrassed the larger Sangh Parivar, and the question has come straight to the doorstep of the BJP itself, that you are associated with these outfits, these organizations. They in fact go around seeking votes for the BJP ahead of the elections. The broader Hindutva agenda, you all subscribe to it, and hence the BJP somehow becomes answerable for these comments. And hence, for the first time, the Prime Minister is vocally expressing his embarrassment over these statements that are constantly made at a time he wants to send out the message that this is an inclusive government.
Stay with us, Paulami. We have Mr. Manoj Jha of the RJD with us over the phone line. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Jha. In your view, is that statement just enough, or should we see a public apology being made by the ministers who've made such anti-minority remarks in the recent past, or is just one stern statement by the Prime Minister enough?
I tell you, I'm sorry to say that on this issue, I have nothing to take my Prime Minister very seriously. That the same Prime Minister spoke of moratorium on 15th of August, and we saw what happened subsequently in every nook and corner by no less than the ministers in the cabinet. Now he has to walk the talk. He has to deliver. He has to execute his mind. Simply rhetorical postures won't help.
But Mr. Jha, does walking the talk mean simply having the minister step down? Is that really the extreme action which you think would have a positive impact on ground? Because we've seen in the past, it's not that the action was not taken. We've seen in the past how certain MPs have been asked to apologize in Parliament in session for statements that they've made.
Let me ask you, have they did they stop making those statements after that? Have you not heard the ministers making obnoxious statements, causing damage to the social fabric in this country? For the first time in this country, we felt that the government has nothing to do with the preamble of the Constitution. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, I'll welcome his statement if he delivers on this.
he makes sure that from now onwards, any minister, anybody holding public office, making any derogatory remark against any community would have to step down, and the strictest punishment should be held against them.
All right, Mr. Jha, that of course being the view of the RJD. Several other political parties there, Mr. Jha, that we've been speaking to, have a similar view here, feeling rather disappointment by this single standalone statement here that's coming from the Prime Minister, also saying that it's too late in the day. Seem to have lost that line, but our correspondent Paul Misa, who continues to get us more updates on this. Paul, perhaps why the opposition feels that sterner action that needs to be seen on ground, with the Prime Minister asking those ministers to step down, is because apologies have come in the past by the MPs in Parliament, but nothing has changed.
Absolutely. Even after, for instance, Sakshi Maharaj made those initial comments which were anti-minority, he went on to make those statements again, time and again. In fact, he was served a show cause notice by the BJP, but clearly he did not mend his ways. The Prime Minister was miffed, what we heard from our sources, hence he was served that show cause notice as well. But clearly, it seems like some of these ministers, some of these leaders, members of Parliament within the BJP continue to make these statements that embarrass the Prime Minister at a time he would like the focus to be on development, on governance issues as far as this particular government is concerned. But that's not happening, and hence the opposition is seeking a more clear statement from the Prime Minister that is not just a rap on the knuckles as far as these leaders are concerned, these controversial political leaders are concerned. It is more than that. It is a reprimand, a serious one at that, which basically tells them that such words, such remarks, such comments will not be tolerated, and action will be taken against them, and not just mere threats and warnings will be served to them.
Right, Paul, there was this reaction that we'd gotten from the Congress earlier stating that while it's very nice that he's made this statement, he's made his stand clear on this issue, but it was effectively an answer to a specific question here. It wasn't something that was stated in Mann Ki Baat. It wasn't something that was stated in a public address. It was stated only when he was asked about it specifically.
That's right. He has only made some reference to it when, of course, like Mr. Manoj Jha was stating, when he made that address on the 15th of August, calling for a moratorium, a 10-year moratorium. Again, there was criticism of that. Why is there a specific timeline for something like this? A 10-year moratorium on any sort of communal clashes or communal animosity. Also, some reference to it at a program in Vigyan Bhavan some time ago when he was addressing the concerns of the Christian minorities, because there were church attacks that were taking place as well, and the minority community, especially the Christian minority community, was feeling threatened by that. And he was at a program which was basically anointing one of them as a saint, and at that point as well, he stated that, you know, any sort of violent action against minority groups will not be tolerated, because he was all for communal harmony. But these are statements that just statements that came out on various occasions where he was trying to throw some light on exactly what he's thinking. But when specifically the remarks were made, controversial remarks were made by those within the BJP or outside of the BJP, but part of the wider Sangh fold, he did not seem to be making any categorical statement.
This time around, in this specific answer that has come in this interview here, Paulami, has he just specifically mentioned the Sangh? Are there other fringe elements that he's mentioned? Because he says that governance and development work that is on, but an attempt is being made to erode it by certain elements. Is he also hitting out at the opposition on this, or is he clearly just looking within?
Well, so far we're still going with that one statement that AIR has put out, and that specifically refers to the Sangh. So this time it's a little interesting only for that one aspect. So he's basically hitting out at the Sangh Parivar. He's hitting out at the RSS, is it? That's what we need to understand basically. So only if we get the full context of his statement will we get a wider idea of exactly what was he hinting at when he made that statement. But for the first time, he's not just referring to those within the party fold, he's referring to those outside the party fold, but you know, those still constituents of the wider Hindutva brigade. So clearly, it's a broad statement in that sense, but mild in the sense that it only sort of restricts itself and limits itself to saying that these comments are uncalled for.
Right, that's the argument here being used, Paul May, that this is too generic a statement here that is being made by Prime Minister Modi. Could have been more specific. while naming a group, while naming a minister, because the controversy there in the past week that we've seen is out for all to know whom perhaps he could be referring to.
That's right. It is appearing a little generic, so we'll have to wait to hear the entire interview. Of course, remember that there could be something lost in translation as well, because the Prime Minister mostly speaks in Hindi. So he's definitely given this interview in Hindi, but the AIR excerpt is in, the tweet rather, is in English. So we'll have to understand if there was something he made, which was probably stronger in terms of a reaction that the Prime Minister made, or was it even milder than this? So we'll have to wait to see the entire statement to understand the gamut of it and to understand what was the Prime Minister thinking when he made this statement.
Well, stay with us, Palmi. While we've been getting in several political reactions, here's what Shakil Ahmed of the Congress has stated. Let's dip into that.
India Radio has come up with a tweet which says that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that certain anti-minority comments by Sangh Parivar leaders were uncalled for. This is for the very first time that we've seen such a comment as tweeted by All India Radio is concerned coming in from Prime Minister.
No, this is the old practice in Sangh Parivar. One leader will say one thing, other leader will say another thing. One organization, Bajrang Dal, will say something else, and Vishwa Hindu Parishad will say something else. So this is the practice of Sangh Parivar. The different leaders say different things at different times. So this is not a new thing. It's an old practice by the Sangh Parivar.
Prime Minister saying that.
Prime Minister, but his colleagues, his party's MPs, what they are telling, and they are saying, and without condemning them. Rajnath Singh made a statement, Home Minister, that we are not subscribing their statement. Without condemning it, without taking action against them, simply distancing from these statements, it's not good, I think.
All right, the Congress, of course, not really buying into that statement that's coming for Prime Minister. But Palmi, what's different this time is, while earlier, when these anti-minority statements were made by several of the BJP leaders, people of the Sangh Parivar there was nothing on record here to state that Prime Minister Modi has had a word with them. Of course, there were apologies that were made in Parliament. There were apologies that were made later as well. But this is the first time you have the Prime Minister at least make this statement on record. We've not seen this on record by Prime Minister Modi in the past.
Absolutely. This is part of an interview, so this is definitely on record for the first time that the Prime Minister has made it so clear. Usually it has been a sort of these are broad statements. Of course, we have that speech that he made at Vigyan Bhavan as well. We have the speech that he made at the Red Fort as well. They're on record for sure. It is for everyone to know and hear, and they're at public gatherings. But nothing as clear and as concise as this that the Prime Minister has ever stated before. So this is possibly the most strongest reaction that we've seen from the Prime Minister on this very sensitive and controversial subject, which has been plaguing the government, as I said, since the time that it assumed office.
Is this a sign, Palmi, that there's this desperate attempt to bring this in control? Because while these ugly controversies have come up in the past, nothing really has changed. Statements of this manner have been made irrespective of what the Prime Minister feels about this. So is this a desperate sign really to open the second year on a positive note, on a promise here to the people of India that needs to be fulfilled, and that Prime Minister himself is serious about it?
Yes, well, this is obviously part of the course correction, because all of these statements coming from within the party or outside of the party have definitely embarrassed this government. There has been so much of damage control that this government and its ministers and spokespersons and leaders have had to engage in, simply because of complete standalone statements being made by those who are those firebrand leaders within the party from the Hindutva brigade, who are obviously, they don't seem to move away from their core agenda. Sahil, we are getting a sense of what exactly probably the Prime Minister said. As I said, this was obviously in Hindi that he stated. So I'll just possibly read out quickly to what he stated. मैंने पहले भी कहा है और इस बात को फिर कह रहा हूँ कि किसी भी समुदाय के खिलाफ हिंसा या भेदभाव बिल्कुल बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जाएगा। इस बारे में मेरा रुख बिल्कुल साफ है कि सबका साथ सबका विकास, और मैं और मेरी सरकार इसी मंत्र पर चल रहे हैं। कुछ दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण टिप्पणियां की गई हैं जो पूरी तरह गैर जरूरी थी। अनकॉल्ड फॉर इज ऑफ कोर्स द वर्ड फॉर दैट। हमारा संविधान देश के हर नागरिक को धार्मिक आजादी की गारंटी देता है और इस पर किसी तरह का समझौता नहीं हो सकता है। सो प्रीटी मच व्हाट AIR said, that he says that there have been some very unfortunate statements that have been made completely uncalled for, but my government stands for Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, an inclusive approach, and our constitution allows for equality of religion, equality of community, and hence that is how it's going to stay.
All right, so Paulami, this of course helps us get a better sense of Prime Minister Modi as stated, but there are no specifications, as was being felt earlier, that there are no specifications of slamming a certain group, a certain minister, no names here being taken. It does remain generic at the end of the day.
Of course, it remains generic because the Prime Minister is trying to send out a message, a strong message to those within the party as well, which he's been trying to do time and again. But clearly, there have been complete deviations from that every time. And ministers have had to step in. Those like Amit Shah have had to pull up these leaders and actually seek an explanation from them and tell them that this is completely damaging the reputation and the image of the party at a time the Prime Minister is doing such good work and wants the focus to be on just that. Clearly, he doesn't want to target anyone specifically. It's an all-round message which is going out to the entire fraternity of the Lok Sabha MPs, the Rajya Sabha MPs, of the BJP and leaders in general within the party fold.
All right, stay with us, Paulami. While you've played out that entire remark, of course, which is essentially come in Hindi, you've read the exact quote so that nothing is lost in translation there. Stay with us, Paulami. Let's get a view from senior journalist Mr. Prem Shankar Jha with us of the phone line. Mr. Jha, would you call this statement as a positive step, or there's nothing different? This has been stated in the past by the Prime Minister, there's nothing new.
It has been stated in the past, but it needs to be stated over and over again. And I'm extremely glad that he has done so, because his past statements were not taken seriously. Partly perhaps because they were first of all, people were not sure that he was really meaning that even within his own party. It needed to be said more forcefully, and he has done so again. And I think that this is a very important step forward.
But Mr. Jha, a lot of opposition parties that we've been speaking to have been stating that the reason why his statements are not really taken seriously because there's no action shown on ground. They're ministers, they're MPs who've made such ugly statements in the past. They've been promoted to being ministers. Some of them, of course, have apologized, forced to apologize in Parliament, really. But no further action. Ministers have not been asked to step down.
You are absolutely right. This is one of the things that was bothering me earlier. And therefore, I think that I agree that this is a work in progress still. And what I remember clearly is how difficult Vajpayee had found this when he came to power. It took him about more than 2 years out of the 6 years that he was Prime Minister to get a real control over this. And even that broke during the Ahmedabad riots. So I don't think one should underestimate the difficulty of the task that Modi is undertaking.
Okay.
What is much more important is
and far more important really to reiterate the statement time and again. Well, Mr. Jha, appreciate you speaking to us. Paulami Saha really for getting us through, giving us through those details and the exact quote there of Prime Minister. Thanks for all those responses there. It's a wrap.